Vatican, in its tendency to keep so many secrets, lays itself open to any number of conspiracy theories. The conspiracy currently hanging over the Vatican is nothing new, and people today are prepared to believe that the Vatican is capable of anything to maintain its power and control over the many millions of Roman Catholic believers throughout the world. One of the earliest charges of conspiracy leveled at the Vatican has its beginnings all the way back to the crucifixion itself. In 1967, a writer named Hugh Schoenfield published a book called The Passover Plot, in which he theorized that Christ did not actually die on the cross, but merely pretended to. What really happened was that Jesus' disciples gave Jesus a drug mixed into wine shortly before the crucifixion that simulated physical death. His followers revived him 3 days later, which was made to look like the resurrection. Then in 1982, a book called Holy Blood, Holy Grail was published, this time alleging that whether or not Jesus actually died on the cross, he had still taken Mary Magdalene as a lover and sired a child with her. After hiding for a time, Jesus and his family traveled to France, where they created the Merovingian dynasty of French warrior kings who supposedly had supernatural powers. In the 8th century, the Pope refused to officially recognize the Merovingians, who then went underground and created several secret societies, including the Knights Templar and the Priory of Sion, in order to protect the royal bloodline of Jesus himself. Now, the Pope's role in the affair is said to go like this. Who would be least served by the fact of Christ's longtime descendants living in the world today? The answer is the Pope, who would be forced to defer to a true son of Christ. Therefore, it's charged that the Vatican keeps this particular secret under very tight wraps. Another Vatican conspiracy dates back to the 11th century and the decadent Pope Leo X, who was accused, among other things, of being an adventurous homosexual given to high living that included eating gluttonous quantities of food and taking kickbacks from the whorehouses of Rome to finance his life of luxury. Eventually, several cardinals who were angry for never receiving the bribes that they had been promised plotted to assassinate Leo. Since the Pope was being treated for hemorrhoids, the plan was to bribe his doctor to inject poison directly into the Pope's rear end. Leo found out about the plot and had the doctor executed. The story sets an interesting precedent for some of the intrigues alleged to exist today. The Vatican is also said to have been behind the famous gunpowder plot of November 5, 1603, a day still celebrated in England as Guy Fawkes Day. Fawkes was a radical Catholic who hoped to restore Catholic rule in England by blowing up the predominantly Protestant British Parliament. He and his cohorts were found out and the plot was foiled, but to this day some believe that his terrorist plots had been directed from Rome by an angry Pope.
Though the light leaves me.
Throughout the centuries, charges have been leveled that the Vatican and its priests have practiced black magic behind the scenes. Noted author Brad Steiger theorizes that this belief can be traced back to the earliest days of the Christian religion.
But always there is the theorist, conspiracy theorist, who says, deep in the heart of the Vatican, there are priests who are practicing satanic rituals that have been deceiving their followers all along. This goes back again to the great fear of when Roman Catholicism sold indulgences. You could buy your way out of purgatory. When they had all the relics, there were so many bits and pieces of the cross that they could have made another wooden Titanic for all the bits and the holy relics and so forth. All these things are related to magic, and some people can make an easy extrapolation to Satanism. This idea of magic and Satanism is the heretics. Who are the heretics? I mean, the very first people who were being burned at the stake and were being tortured were members of the clergy who were still practicing magic. So this idea of being perpetual, this whole thing, the concept, I personally, have spoken to, whether they're defrocked priests or not, who were practicing magicians and declaring this, of course, to be white magic. And that's, in a sense, if you want to be cynical, that's what Roman Catholicism is, with the various saints and the way the hierarchy is set up. We have Mariolatry, the former pope. Mary was his, his greatest emphasis. The apparitions of Mary gave him his greatest strength. And there was a fear, certainly among American Catholics, that Rome was going into Mariolatry. And of course this shows that religion needs, if it has a father, it has to have a mother. There's just something within the innate human psyche that wants a father and a mother figure. And of course, Catholicism has done that with Jesus, the Father, God, and Mary, the Mother.
More recently, the accusation of Satanism in the Vatican has reared its ugly head. In 1996, a priest named Father Malachi Martin published a novel called Windswept House, which opened with a scene that depicted Vatican officials mounting a likeness of the devil on a throne in St. Peter's in the dark of night. Father Martin's book was widely accepted as a truth disguised as fiction attempt to expose the rumored real-life Satanism being practiced in the secret depths of a Vatican gone very wrong. The crux of the Satanism accusation involves charges that important Vatican officials have sold their souls to the devil and now fervently believe that the Church must do away with its religious preoccupations in order to take part in creating a new world order that will do away with many human rights and freedoms. The satanic Vatican officials are working against the Pope and in conjunction with the European Union and the United Nations. According to the novelist priest Father Malachi Martin, anybody who is acquainted with the state of affairs in the Vatican in the last 35 years is well aware that the Prince of Darkness has had and still has surrogates in the court of St. Peter's in Rome. Father Martin further accused certain unnamed bishops and priests of homosexuality and pedophilia and other perverted acts conducted as part of the observance of satanic rituals. He also claimed that a group of nuns carried out the black rites of witchcraft and lived together in lesbian relationships. Father Martin died in 1999, but he never recanted any of his accusations of Satanism in the Vatican. Jordan Maxwell is a preeminent researcher and speaker in the fields of secret societies, occult philosophies, and ufology. He agrees that the Vatican is possibly controlled by supernatural forces whose ultimate goal is world control.
But it's on a need-to-know basis, and most humans on the earth don't need to know. There's only a handful of people who've got the brains and the wherewithal to even start thinking about this kind of metaphysical intrigue that's going on the earth. And once you begin to see how this stuff is being portrayed in movies, and the implication, of course, is that somebody very high up is not human. Somebody is talking about something way above humans' heads. The heads of the human beings are just not getting it. We're not getting it. Like the comedian said, there's only two kinds of people in the world, those who get it and those who don't. And most of the human race don't get it. These movies and these stories of the Holy Grail, the establishment of the Vatican, the Holy Father, the very Roman Empire itself, and its religio-political, philosophical basis for the Caesars of Rome, going all the way back into the ancient world, all of this implies something very, very dark. Satan, devil, angel, all these words and terms which we use all the time people have no idea in the world what these words really mean. And a classic example of how we use words and we should be ashamed to use them in public, like church. The very word church is an English word which can be traced back to a Scottish word, kirk. That's why you have Captain Kirk on the Starship Enterprise, because the churches are a business. It's an enterprise. Captain Kirk. Captain goes back to the word capital. Capital is the word for money. This is why churches are divided into denominations. You need to understand that the ancient system of usury, manipulation, exploitation of the human creature is still well in place, and the very word church can be traced back to a Scottish word, kirk, and kirk can be directly traced back to an ancient Greek goddess named Circe. She was referred to as Mother Circe, or Mother Kirk, or today Mother Church.
Well, I think if we look behind the curtain, we see a number of wizards through the centuries who have created the idea of a secret society, a council of nine, and I think that is a very convenient way of removing personal responsibility and blaming someone else for our problems. I think it's another way of saying that the devil is responsible for our problems. By the same token, historically, of course, from the days of the pharaohs and before, there have always been secret groups of the ruling party that will assassinate those or banish those or do away with those in one means or another from those who oppose the status quo. So right up, the French Revolution, through Nazi Germany, and through various assassination squads, we find out to our embarrassment operate today. So this tends to give credence to the idea that there's some vast universal secret society that will get you if you don't behave or is calling the shots. And this is a very fanciful way of dealing with it. I mean, in James Bond, we have the criminals that meet from all over the world. I mean, in Uncle, we had the united against evil. This idea of fighting evil and having a great evil force that has minions all over is a way then of dealing with the bad things that happen to us. And then they're reinforced by governments and principalities and rulers throughout all of history that have sent their goons, that have sent their thugs to go out and secretly eliminate those who oppose the status quo.
For a number of years, the Vatican has been accused of being in league with various nefarious groups and organizations. A Vatican satanic connection has been a favorite of evangelical and fundamentalist churches, but there has also been accusations of satanic rituals being conducted at the Vatican by so-called whistleblowers who claim to have insider experience with such unsavory incidents. This was a favorite theme in the 19th and earliest 20th century, with a number of books and pamphlets being published accusing the Vatican of unhuman activity and an ultimate goal of world domination. The recent media attention with priests accused of child molestation has created a resurgence of Vatican-themed conspiracy theories, ranging once again to the old accusations of secret satanic worship to connections with the New World Order and the Illuminati. It doesn't help that the Church can trace its roots far back into a pagan past. The fact that the Vatican is located right in the middle of Rome, which once was one of the great pagan empires, also leads those who view the entire power structure of the Church with suspicion. Author and researcher Patricia Ress says that such suspicion should not be discounted out of hand due to the activities of such church-sponsored groups as the Opus Dei.
Well, the Bible code is very negative about Opus Dei. The Bible code says that they're a demonic force calls it a demonic force. And so, I don't know, I think the people in it think they're being very good Catholics, but apparently that's not really what is happening. So it has kind of a negative connotation. I don't, as far as going around and killing people like in the movie, I think that would be too obvious. In fact, I'll tell you something interesting. I had a boyfriend years ago that lived in England and worked for Scotland Yard. And he told me something kind of interesting. This was long before Princess Diana died or anything. He said usually if the American CIA wants something done, they'll go to like the French or the MI6 in England. Or if the MI6 wants something done, they'll go to the Americans or the French. Or if the French want something done, they go to the KGB or the British. Like they all know each other and all the spooks know each other. But they get somebody different than their own people because then it can't be traced back. See what I'm saying? So a lot of things that happen that you might think somebody's responsible for may actually have been somebody else.
There is little doubt that the Vatican has secrets. Any organization as large and as old as the Church would certainly have things that they would like kept hidden from the rest of the world. The question to ask is, what sort of secrets is the Vatican keeping? The Vatican has its own secret archives, which are as vast as they are old. One expert claims that there are over 52 miles of shelves with the accumulated records of scandals, secrets, and revelations of the most shocking and explosive kind which the Church has accumulated over the centuries. While some of the secret archives are available to selected scholars who must ask in advance for the precise document they wish to see, much of the Vatican's secret documents have never been seen by outsiders. Rumors have circulated for centuries about what deep dark secrets the Vatican is attempting to hide. The most popular theory suggests that Rome is hiding the fact that Jesus did not die on the cross, but survived and lived to sire children whose descendants still live today. Another theory states that Jesus was in fact a fictional character, possibly based on a real Jewish rabbi who was crucified for his actions against Rome, but fictional nevertheless. Others say that the secret archives contain historical documents that show that Mary, the mother of Jesus, was not a virgin, but was a prostitute, and Jesus' actual father was a Roman centurion. There are also rumors that say that there is evidence that Jesus had a twin brother or sister who was the actual Messiah, and that Jesus was simply the front man so that the Messiah could get away safely if trouble were to arise. The Church more than likely contains secret books of the Bible that contains forbidden knowledge that would damage the foundation on which the Church had been built. The idea that people could find God within themselves rather than through the hierarchy of the Church was simply too dangerous to ever be released to the public.
It's the bloodline of France, perhaps, in the Holy Blood, Holy Grail theories, and that Jesus did not die on the cross, but he came to France with Mary Magdalene and his wife. And I think there again, there's so much evidence that indicates that this may have been true, and there is resistance of belief. Now, it's the same with Princess Diana. There are those who believe she was killed. There are those then who will not accept her death. There are those that will not accept that Jesus didn't die on the cross because of belief. We have belief, and then how do we recreate something that happened 2,000 years ago? We have legend and myth, and they all intertwine. They all become one. And as we find out in history, if you happen to be a history buff as I am, the history is so fascinating, but in so few cases do we know the true history because people print the legend. The legend is more colorful. The legend has more elements. The legend touches us in different ways that perhaps the actual historical event wouldn't.
I think that it's beyond a shadow of a doubt that the Vatican has hidden within its secret vaults books and papers that they consider simply too dangerous to be released to the rest of the world. We have some good examples of the type of material that the Vatican probably considers too dangerous. Books such as the Gnostic Gospels, which have come down to us from different sources. This is the type of stuff that the Vatican has got hidden away in its secret archives. They've been meticulous over the years in keeping records. They realize the historical value of such material and are loath to get rid of it, but they're also reluctant to let the rest of the world know that such material exists. This could be damaging to the hierarchy of the Church. The Church probably also has in its secret archives evidence that shows that the Bible has come down to us from various pagan sources that were written centuries before historical biblical times. This could mean that Jesus was a fictional character, and that the original writers of the Gospels were using older pagan sources to put their views across against the Jewish hierarchy and the Roman occupation. It wouldn't do the Church any good to let its members know that Jesus was possibly a fictional character and that his teachings were based on earlier writings that had been around for thousands of years before his time. Until the time comes when the Church makes the secret archives available to any scholar who wants to read them, we'll never know what kind of material they have contained within the walls of the Vatican.
I always told my husband, I said, there are 3 places I'd like to be in the middle of the night without being watched. And one would be the Pentagon, the other would be the Kremlin, and the third one would be the Vatican. Because I think they probably have a lot of, secrets and things. I have heard that they have books and things that came from, like that library in Alexandria. Different places that were destroyed, that there were things that were saved by different people and were taken back and kept and locked away in the Vatican. I have heard that.
Almost the entire Christ story is of pagan origin, blending the dying and resurrecting God of Roman, Greek, and Egyptian myth with the Gnostic picture of a holy being descending to an evil world to enlighten the elect. When Christianity became the official religion of the dying Roman Empire, even more pagan elements were brought in for those who would not give up their old ways. This has been passed down and can be seen in today's church. One interesting example is the fish, one of the earliest Christian symbols. In Greece, the Greek word Delphos means both fish and womb. The word is derived from the location of the ancient oracle at Delphi, who worshipped the original fish goddess Themis. The later fish goddess Aphrodite Silicius was worshipped by her followers on her sacred day, Friday. They ate fish and engaged in religious sexual orgies. From her name comes the English word salacious, which means lustful or obscene. Also from her name comes the name of our 4th month, April. In later centuries, the Catholic Church absorbed this tradition by requiring the faithful to eat fish on Friday. Dating back to 1400 BC, the Oracle of Delphi was the most important shrine in all of Greece, and in theory all Greeks respected its independence. Built around the sacred spring, Delphi was considered to be the center of the world. According to Greek myth, Zeus charged 2 eagles with finding the center of the earth. He released one to the east and one to the west. They met at Delphi, thus pointing out the center of the earth. A cone-shaped decorated stone once stood in front of the temple as a marker for the navel of the world. Legends surrounding the oracle are so tightly intertwined with history that getting an accurate picture is impossible. It is thought that long before the Greeks claimed Delphi for themselves, there were women oracles who communicated with the Earth Mother and issued predictions for the upcoming year. The original story says that long ago a shepherd noticed his goats acting very strangely near an opening in the earth. He told his neighbors about it. Some of the curious investigated the strange fumes and went into a trance and began to mumble prophecies. This went on until a priestess of the earth goddess appointed a woman to serve as the official sibyl or oracle. Word of the oracle spread fast. After the takeover by the followers of Apollo, people traveled to Delphi not only from other areas in Greece, but also from Egypt, Asia Minor, and Italy for private consultations. The economy boomed because of the number of people making the pilgrimage. Donations paid for the building of a theater and a stadium. The Temple of Apollo was the very center and heart of the shrine, the seat of the oracle. During the French excavation, a pool connected to an aqueduct was discovered between the treasury of the Athenas and the portico. This pool plunged under the temple. Perhaps that was where the oracle ritually bathed, not in an area open to the public, as some would have it. On the morning of a day when the oracle was scheduled to prophesize, a goat would be sacrificed at an altar just outside of the great temple of Apollo, and its entrails would be examined. If results were favorable, the oracle would operate that day. She would then complete the prescribed rituals, purifications in the Castilian waters, dressed in full ceremonial robes, sometimes chewing a few laurel leaves, seating herself on the tripod, and inhaling the foul-smelling vapors. Before the pilgrim entered the temple and descended into the smoky enclosure of the oracle, he had to make an offering. His question was written and given to one of the oracle's assistants. Then the pilgrim waited in a corner until an answer was recorded and delivered to him. The entire experience was surrounded by ritual and spirituality. The Pythia entered into an altered state of consciousness and then uttered what some say were unintelligible verbalizations. These were then composed into verses by the priest, and interpretations were rendered to provide meaning. Oddly enough, this practice was quite similar to the later phenomena of the Christian charismatic spiritual gifts of speaking in tongues and the interpretation of tongues. The Pythia was knowledgeable in many areas: history, religion, geography, politics, mathematics, philosophy. She uttered advice on where and how to build cities, which laws to incorporate, and which prayers to utter to the gods. Arguments over the correct interpretations of the oracle were common, but the oracle was always happy to give another prophecy if more gold was provided. The lack of a strict religious dogma associated with the worship of Greek gods also encouraged scholars to congregate at Delphi, and became a focal point for intellectual inquiry, as well as an occasional meeting place where rivals could negotiate. There are many examples of the oracle's influences on the Bible. One example is a story where the gods, through the oracle, ordered a king to slay his son as a sign of obedience. The oracle said, "Kill your son at the altar for a sacrifice, or your corn will grow no more." This was a dreadful blow to the king, but he had to obey what he believed to be God's wish. Like Abraham and Isaac in the Bible, the gods relented at the last minute. This is obviously not an exact retelling of the story of Abraham's near sacrifice of his son, but a historical kernel obviously exists, which was later written into the Bible. When Pope John Paul II died in 2005, he was greatly mourned throughout the world. He may also have been mourned by creatures not of this world at all. A Reuters news item appeared on the internet shortly after the Pope's death, in which a piece of video was discussed. That video showed what appeared to be an unidentified flying object moving across the upper left portion of the screen. The video was taken from a network feed camera at about 6 a.m. Roman time as Pope John Paul II lay in state. While some have speculated that the object might be a bird, others felt instead that it was something more mysterious. The association between major religious events and UFO sightings of course goes back to ancient times, and strange alien craft have often appeared in the background of classic religious paintings. What the ultimate meaning of the UFO appearance at the Pope's funeral may be is of course open to question. Reporter and UFO researcher Chris Barbato recently announced that he was contacted by a Vatican insider who wanted to know more about Barbato's research into the visions at Fatima. In the course of their email correspondence, the Vatican Insider revealed the existence of a Vatican intelligence agency called SIV. After a year of conversing by email, Barbado met in person with his secretive friend who confessed to being an SIV member himself and revealed much more to Barbado than was previously known. The informant gave Barbado a video that contained observations of a 10th planet approaching the solar system. The video had allegedly been recorded by a space probe, and its images were then sent to a secret radio telescope concealed in an unused oil refining plant in Alaska.
And that's also why the Vatican is building observatories in countries all over the world. They've got 2 in Arizona now, and I have a friend in Australia that says they're building one there. And there's a whole bunch of astronomers that are going down to the South Pole right now, and there's sort of a blackout on it. They can't report back what they're seeing or what they're doing even. And of course, if you read Zeta Talk, Nancy Leader and all that, she claims that it's coming in from the south, to the southern hemisphere, and if that's true, then that would explain why all these astronomers are going to Antarctica.
The Vatican Insider next revealed even more. He claimed that the secret Vatican intelligence agency had been established because of a meeting with an alien delegation at Muroc Airfield in February 1954, attended by President Dwight D. Eisenhower and James Francis McIntyre, the Bishop of Los Angeles. After the incredible meeting, Bishop McIntyre flew to Rome to brief Pope Pius XII, who then decided to found the SIV with the intention of learning everything they could about the aliens and their dealings with the U.S. government. Later in the game, it was rumored that there were a series of direct personal meetings between SIV members and a Nordic-looking race of aliens from the Pleiades. The meetings took place mainly in the United States, but at least 2 such meetings took place at the Vatican with Pope Pius XII in attendance.
We certainly can look around us and see that we live on a planet that is changing. It may seem that it's not for the better. We all know that it's much warmer than it was when we were kids. We know that it's drier in many places, have suffered from drought. We know that America isn't really quite the land that we started out with as Americans. There are just a number of things that frighten us and tell us that these are changing times. We call it the change times. So it kind of comes down to, yes, something is afoot, something is changing. Are we going to feel it's doomsday, as some predictions say? I mean, this has been something that's been in the human psyche for hundreds of years, that doomsday is coming, and many have predicted it to be around the start of the 21st century. Do we take it as the end, or do we look at it as a new beginning, a change of dimension, the fact that life never truly dies, it simply transforms? So how can it be doomsday for an entire planet, or for many living beings on a planet? Can't we transform this consciousness that we all have to a better consciousness, to a higher level of consciousness?
Monsignor Corrado Balducci began his long career as a Vatican expert in demonology. His research into the dark side of the spiritual world led him to discover the equally dark mysteries of ufology, and he has since spoken out publicly many times that he believes the UFO phenomenon to be something real and genuine. Balducci also states that belief in the UFO phenomena in no way conflicts with his deeply held Catholic faith. Coming from such a respected authority as Balducci, who is a member of the governing body of the Vatican called the Vatican Curia, as well as an insider close to the Pope, his public testimony that UFOs are real is indeed worthy of note. Balducci fervently says that extraterrestrial encounters are not demonic, which is very reassuring to hear from a clergyman of his status. Close encounter experiences are also not due to psychological impairment, nor are they cases of entity attachment. Close encounters should instead be put in a separate category and be subjected to rigorous study.
There are periods when nothing happens in the field. Although, if you look on the internet now, you say, well, there's no UFO activity in the United States, it's all gone away. But in China, they're having a huge flap. Maybe down in Chile somewhere, the UFOs are invading a village. In Mexico, they're taking up people. There's always something going on around the world. It's not that UFOs are just of interest to a small segment of the population. It's something that has been of immense interest and a growing interest around the planet. There isn't one country on the face of the earth that this phenomena hasn't touched. In fact, several decades ago, Dr. Hynek presided over a closed session of the United Nations where there was an attempt made to get some sort of subcommittee organized to investigate and keep track of this phenomena on a global basis. But it's very interesting. All these countries, China, Russia, Iran, Iraq, they never agree on anything. They agreed on this and they put it down and nothing was ever done about it. Only the lonely country of Grenada, where they had postage stamps made with UFOs on them, was the only one that I think voted positively on the subject.
Given Monsignor Balducci's history as a demonology expert and consultant to the Vatican, coupled with the fact that the Church has historically demonized many new phenomena that were poorly understood, Balducci's declaration that close encounters are not demonic becomes all the more crucial to a positive understanding of the subject. Balducci has stated off the record that the Vatican is following the UFO phenomena closely and quietly, with the Vatican embassies throughout the world reporting directly to the Vatican any information they receive about the aliens and their contacts with human beings. Balducci is himself a member of a group which acts as consultants to the Vatican on various matters concerning humans in possible contact with supernatural beings. As such, the matter of extraterrestrial contact would fall within their purview, as well as the task of determining what it all means in spiritual terms as open extraterrestrial contact continues to emerge as a possible future real-world event. It has been suggested that the Vatican is concerned that it will have to do a general overhaul of official church doctrine when extraterrestrial contact is announced by world governments over the next several years. In March of 2006, Balducci was a featured speaker at a UFO conference in Rome. He acknowledged that he is the official Vatican spokesman on the subject. He also told the audience that he had written a note to the current Pope, Benedict XVI, and that the late Pope, John Paul II, had followed closely Balducci's television appearances in which the Monsignor discussed UFOs. So it is readily apparent that Balducci has the blessing of the highest levels of the Vatican. Balducci has declared that Jesus is the King of the universe, and as such, Christ's loyal subjects would include life from other planets. Balducci has also confessed his wish to become a spokesperson for the race of creatures from the stars, since they are equally a part of God's glory. He pledged to continue bringing UFOs to the attention of the Holy Mother Church. As God's power is limitless, Balducci told an Italian reporter, it is not only possible, but it is also likely that inhabited planets do exist. It is interesting to note that in the courtyard of the Pine Cone at the Vatican Museums is a bizarre sculpture that looks just like a type of ball-shaped UFO reported worldwide. This bronze sculpture is called Sphere Within Sphere, and it was created by artist Arnaldo Pomodoro in 1990 for the Vatican's museum. Pomodoro's specialty is the casting of gigantic columns and/or globes. In this magnificent sculpture, the fractured surface of the outer sphere reveals a very complex inner sphere that represents the harsh difficulties that the modern world finds itself in at the end of the second millennium. It could very well also represent the Vatican's interest and belief in UFOs and their ongoing research in solving the mystery. Does Monsignor Balducci and the Vatican have an important role to play in the coming of opening extraterrestrial contact? Only time will tell. With a history as long and spectacular as the Vatican, there is no doubt that the grounds and buildings were infused with the mystical energies and vibrations of times past. Some visitors to the Vatican are swept up and overwhelmed by the spiritual powers that permeate the atmosphere. Noted psychic Penny Milos recounts her impressions on her recent visit to the Vatican.
As I'm walking up these steps, I'm noticing and feeling some great energy that lies behind these doors. I feel like there was something pulling me to find out, but yet it was almost like I was not supposed to know what was going on in there. I feel that there is some great mystery that lies behind them that women may not be allowed to know what's going on in there, and that some kind of secret society could be doing some deep, dark rituals or something behind these doors that are connecting this world to maybe another world that we don't see. And it's just very interesting to walk along these hallways and see these mysteries that are maybe so hidden that only a few people may know about this. My feelings of past generations traveling through here, I picked up a lot of energies that were curious as to knowing what lies in these documents and what lies in these pictures and tapestries and wall artifacts and paintings that I was viewing. I mean, this leads right into the Da Vinci Code, and how in the Da Vinci Code, even the book explains that it gives possible reasons or explanations to who these people are and what their agenda is in our society today. And although it was a fictional type of book, I think that there are a lot of relative information that possibly the Vatican, the Pope, the Catholic Church may want to keep secret, and they're hiding it from everyone in plain view. And if we took the time and we felt the energies and we feel what those artists were trying to communicate to us because they lived at that time, there possibly can be a higher level that we'll reach. And I'm feeling that everybody has this power within them to reach this, and they just need to unlock these keys and find for themselves and visit and see and feel what was felt when you walked through these hallways and you walked in and saw these artifacts that were on display there. It's only a minuscule part of what is really connected to. I mean, they're from the era of Christ, and it's just overwhelming to know that you can feel and hear and see the same images that were from then.
The Vatican has a long and troubled relationship with the phenomena of demonic possession and has had to walk a fine line when choosing whether or not to perform an exorcism. But what exactly constitutes possession? Some of the generally agreed upon symptoms include a demon speaking through the possessed victim in languages unknown to the person. The possession may also be aware of events that are either secret or happen at a vast distance. The possessed may display feats of superhuman strength, as well as denigrating the Lord, Mary, the cross, the saints, and exhibit overwhelming revulsion for holy artifacts and symbols. In recent decades, the Vatican has required priests who perform exorcisms to first determine whether there is some other psychological illness present in the possessed, such as the voices and delusions of schizophrenia. If medical science has failed to help the sufferer, then an exorcism may be considered the last resort. Catholic priests throughout the world are besieged these days with requests for an exorcism. Vatican officials partly blame the rise of Satanism, black magic, and renewed interest in the occult as factors that open the door to evil spirits.
Well, just remember, if there is coming an Antichrist, if there is coming some sort of a dark and horrible Darth Vader, some kind of the Emperor of the universe, it will be brought in to the world. And if the world of mankind is to be ultimately imprisoned, and ultimately freedom is to be completely and totally destroyed from the minds of men, it will be brought in by, as all the founding fathers of this country knew, and of great minds have always said, and I'm saying it again, if a dark time for the human race is to be brought in and reestablished in the world to bring back what we call the Dark Ages, if that is to happen, it will happen at the behest of the Christian religion in general, and in our case, the Christian religion, which is nothing more than a state-backed, occult, mystical system, which virtually nobody has done any research on to find out where these ideas, concepts, symbols, national emblems, coats of arms, halotry seals, presidential seals, words, terms, catchphrases, none of this has been researched by the American people to know who we are, where we've come from, and where we're going as a human race.
There have also been many cases in which the possessed dies under the hands of an exorcist when the ceremony somehow goes awry. For example, in Romania, a priest and 4 nuns stood trial in the death of a novice nun. The young woman died after being tied to a wooden cross and gagged with a holy vestment in a failed attempt to drive the devil out of her. The novice nun was also being medically treated for schizophrenia at the time. In response to such appalling incidents of faith, the Vatican has tried to add a scientific gloss to the exorcism ceremony by offering medical training to priests, including classes taught by mental health professionals who demonstrate that valid medical symptoms can account for things previously thought to be the devil's work. Despite the recent spate of bad publicity, there has also been no public outcry against exorcism, and requests from the afflicted continue to pour in from all over the world. In September of the year 2000, Pope John Paul II performed an impromptu exorcism on a teenage girl after she began screaming insults in a cavernous voice during an audience in Vatican City. The combined efforts of the Pope and his top exorcist, Father Gabriele Amorth, failed to drive the devil out of the young woman. The devil's voice sneeringly laughed from within her as the Pope struggled uselessly to free her. While there had been previous incidents of possession at Vatican City, none were this sensational. The woman had the usual superhuman strength as she struggled violently with Vatican guards. Another Vatican official tried to calm her down, but she began shouting angry insults and speaking in unknown tongues. The Pope himself spoke to her, exorcised her, and stayed with her for about a half an hour. He promised to say a Mass for her the next day in order to liberate her. But the Pope's intervention produced only a temporary relief for the young woman. Her parents said that she had been possessed since the age of 12 as a result of someone putting a curse on her out of hatred for the family. The chief exorcist, Father Amorth, claimed later that the Vatican had subsequently tried to cover up the affair. The young woman was splendid, he said, in terms of purity and goodness, which made her possession by the devil all the more terrible. It moves one to pity, Father Amorth said, to see her suffer so, all bent over and contracted. Father Amorth is currently the Vatican's top practitioner of exorcism, and he wishes there were more like himself, but the Vatican continues to drag its heels in appointing new exorcists in a world increasingly overrun by Satan. Amorth says that the ritual of exorcism begins with Jesus himself casting out devils, and that the rites continue as an integral part of Christianity. He has no problem telling the difference between true cases of possession and those that are merely feigned as a result of some medical malady. The first step in an exorcism is to get the demon to acknowledge its presence, since it is the goal of Satan to remain hidden. Demons are wary of talking, Amorth said, and must be forced to speak. When demons are voluntarily chatty, it's a trick to distract the exorcist. The demon will usually answer the priest in a strange, unnatural voice. If the possessing spirit is Satan himself, he will most often say so. The devil is asked if he is alone or if there are others with him. There can be anywhere from 2 to 30 evil spirits dwelling within the body, and it is important to quantify the number. The devil is asked when and how he entered the body, and whether the devil was sent there as a result of a curse or a spell. No two cases are the same, according to Father Amorth. Some victims spit, some vomit, and some have to be restrained physically by several strong men. The demon will often threaten the priest, saying he will place a serpent between the exorcist's bed sheets or physically eat the priest's heart out of his chest. Father Amorth claims not to be frightened by the devil at such moments, saying his faith in the Madonna and his namesake, the Archangel Gabriel, are his primary weapons and are sufficient to shut the demon up. Throughout recorded history, different societies have treated those believed to be possessed by spirits in a number of diverse ways. In pre-Christian Rome, the possessed were often sent to the Colosseum so that their gruesome deaths might entertain the masses.
The Colosseum was overwhelming pain that just emanated from the torturous, from the absolute torturous and horrific events that occurred there. The blood, all of the killing, and the screams were intense. I had an immense headache just from entering the Colosseum, and the energies were overwhelming. I had to take many times where I would sit down and just try to calm my own thoughts, because I heard too much pain and horror, and the intrigue of traveling through the Colosseum and through the Vatican's courtyard or through the Sistine Chapel drew me in even deeper, and opening up my mind and opening up my heart to them, I was able to get a lot of the feeling as if I was in that era, as if I was alive with them, to feel their pain and to feel their need for someone to connect with them to now and to
In
past.
ancient Pompeii, shadowed by the volcano Vesuvius, the possessed were treated with respect and even reverence, as it was thought that the gods had chosen them for a special purpose. To harm or interfere with them in any way would risk bringing down the wrath of the gods.
They communicate through the energies that they leave there, and the impression, the psyche that is left because of the intense nature of their work. Not even just the artwork, but the actual area where they were sitting. You can feel they have left something there of themselves for the next person or the next generation to pick up and then experience for themselves, and begin to understand and develop this empathy, this relatedness that will carry the energies for all of our people, and everybody in the world is connected to this, and it's just an immense feeling of reaching out and hearing what they have to say.
In January of 1999, the Vatican issued a revised version of the official rituals of exorcism, the first such updating since 1614. The new rituals, while they do require that modern medicine must be consulted in an effort to help the sufferer, make it very clear that belief in the existence of the devil is not optional for Catholic believers. At a prestigious college in Rome in 2005, a new round of classes began for priests seeking an education in the ways of the devil. The class is part of a Vatican response to the rising interest in Satanism throughout Europe. According to one source, there are 5,000 Italians involved in 650 satanic cults in operation in the country, more than double that number a decade ago. The Vatican is considered to be one of civilization's greatest treasures. A city within a city, a country within a country. A place where the human and the divine almost touch one another. It is a place cloaked in both majesty and mystery. It is a place where the boundaries between myth and fact are often blurred. It is a place that is often seen, but seldom revealed. It is a realm where past and present exist, but never surrenders. The secrets of the Vatican.